Hello there, welcome to Weird Music on the Glumberger channel. So this is a very tricky episode for me to try produce, make, edit and everything like that for you, as this is a completely unscripted episode which I have never attempted in the 2 years I've been making weird music for. But there's a particular reason why I feel like this needs to come from the heart, as I'm sure a bunch of you might understand by the end of this, but we'll just see how this goes. So I do apologise. This episode is going to be incredibly rambly, incredibly weird, but we'll just see how it goes. So to kind of start things off, some of you, long fans of the show might know that I do dabble in the creation of music myself. I am the guitarist for the noise rock band Burden Limbs, of course, but also I do produce music under my own projects as well. There's a whole bunch of different ones, some I will mention, some I won't, but the main ones being The Light and Day, which is kind of like my outlet for ambient music, where kind of started out as projects on Audacity and then turned into the use of live improvisation using pedal effects. But the other main project I kind of have under my umbrella, I guess you can call it, is that of Low Resident, which some of you may have come across before. Essentially, Low Resident is kind of just my approach to songwriting, my lyrics and my identity, if that makes sense. And I always describe it as, my existential outlook on life expressed through very sad, melancholy, slow music. Essentially what I want to present to you today actually is, I guess you could call it the first official physical release under this project of Low Resident. It's probably best to just go straight into it, so getting on with it. Today, I'm going to present a bit of an odd release for you. These Mortal Hands, Laugh and the World Laughs With You, by Low Resident. So, we always start these videos by asking ourselves the question, who the artist is. Who is Low Resident? Well, this is a weird one because Low Resident is the moniker for one Gareth Watkin, aka Glumberger, of the very odd music reviewing series Weird Music on YouTube, right? And so Low Resident doesn't have much going for itself really, apart from one live show in support of the Burden Limbs Quiet Show, as it was at New River Studios a couple of years ago, and the single release of the single Ado Edith, which was included on the Chennington Club Selects Volume 2 selection as the final track, as it was, back when I used to be a Patreon subscriber to Pat Chennington. Essentially, Low Resident, as I briefly kind of mentioned, my kind of exploration of, my existentialism in life and trying to understand my place in the world, essentially, through music itself. So the Low Resident kind of started around, I want to say 2016 to 2017 is when I started writing. I've been writing songs a lot of my life since I first learned to play guitar, but it was when I started delving into sort of, melancholy, sadness and depression, I guess it was, that I really found I was tapping into something that made a lot more sense to me. In any case, as the years went on, my songwriting kind of changed into sort of more introspection and looking at, essentially my mental health and, you know, depression, anxiety, things like that, existentialism, and examining it through the use of very slow music, essentially. And that is how Low Resident as a moniker was born. So I've been writing loads of songs, recorded a whole bunch of songs, and I never released anything until it was around 2021 or 22, when I actually put Ado Edith on the Bandcamp under Low Resident, basically. Prior to that, nothing I ever released with the project. I have always been far too scared, far too timid to do anything. That is until 2024, this very year, that I decided it was time to sort of, you know, clear some of the dust off some of those old recordings, essentially. And what I have to present to you, the audience of Weird Music, is my very first physical release as Low Resident, These Mortal Hands, Laugh and the World Laughs With You. Essentially, this was kind of going to be a bit of a special for the 2-year anniversary of Weird Music, which would have been on the 1st of July, but I didn't get around in time to making it for them. It is what it is. But I decided to stick with it because, it's an interesting bunch of songs I've got here that I'm going to do my best to try to explain over the course of this video. It's going to be very weird and rambly, as I mentioned, but it is what it is. Essentially what I've got here is a physical cassette that I've made that will be available for distribution to whoever wants one. Like, I honestly don't really mind or care, like, you know, the monetary value of these things. I just wanted to make this for a very special reason that we'll get into at the end. But yeah, I thought it would be kind of interesting to kind of present this as a Weird Music episode and see what it's kind of like when I try to examine my own music, basically. I think it's going to be really bloody weird, but well, like, and especially with it being unscripted, I have no idea how this is going to turn out, but you know what? Let's just crack on with it, shall we? So, These Mortal Hands, Laugh and the World Laughs With You. It opens up with the 12 and a half minute song, These Mortal Hands. So 12 and a half minutes of my ramblings, basically. So, These Mortal Hands, this is a really difficult song for me to actually try discuss and talk about. It's a very lo-fi, dark song, mostly built around this repeated looped guitar pattern. There's kind of like some other guitars playing in the background as well, just, you know, playing overdubs over it. Bunch of other effects as well. There's kind of like a bass sound in it, but this is essentially me just, you know, playing the electric guitar but tuning, putting the setting down to a more bassy sound, because I didn't own a bass guitar at the time, but I wanted that kind of low end in it as well. It's a very long, slow brooding track that really examines essentially what was one of the most tumultuous moments in my entire life, essentially. It was in the year of 2019 where my mental health, my depression and everything like that, it was at its absolute lowest. I was indulging in some incredibly self-destructive behavior, essentially, and it kind of culminated into a sort of big explosive moment where it's difficult to try say, but yeah, I did try to take my life, essentially. Of course, I'm here now, everything's fine, don't worry. But what kind of came in the weeks after was the writing of this very song, These Mortal Hands, which, you know, I kind of see as my sort of existential confusion of that very state I was in during that literal time, if that makes any sense to you. Hence why it's so embedded in this really dark, foreboding and just unsettling atmosphere, I find. Like, it's a really difficult song for me to go back to and approach, essentially. I'll be honest, I kind of mentioned it in the Bandcamp liner notes, but I actually have no memory of how to actually play this song. I believe this one kind of just came about when I was noodling on the guitar and this came out. And I started overdubbing onto it, wrote all these things to it, and this was the song that came out. And it perfectly captures that very confusing, terrifying sense of existentialism, essentially. So I kind of just kept it as it was, and to me it's kind of like a sonic snapshot of what is easily one of the most dark, foreboding parts of my life, essentially. It's very difficult for me to try to talk about this one, but I'm trying my best. But essentially, that is why there's this very dark, unsettling atmosphere permeating throughout the entirety of this recording, I feel. Like, when I hear this song, like, it kind of chills me a bit. And it is just, weirdly enough, I don't know why it's structured this way, but you've got 5 minutes of actual song, and then just these 7 minutes of instrumental closing time, which is kind of like just, to me, the culmination of what it is you've done, the events that have happened, and trying to come to terms and understand everything, if that makes sense, even with all that confusion, chaos and turmoil. And every time I hear it, it does place me right back to that time in 2019, and that's why it's very unsettling for me to hear. But at the same time, there's a reason why you return to things like these, and a reason why I'm trying to present it on this cassette, release it and present it to everyone. So yeah, we'll see. Very weird song, but yeah, I think we'll end the discussion on that one there. To move on, I essentially partnered These Mortal Hands up with the second track on the B-side of this cassette, which is Laugh and the World Laughs With You, which for those who have been checking out Low Resident as a concept, musical concept or whatever, might know this song actually, as it was a song that I included in a live set I did on the acoustic guitar. It was out at the Quay, the boatyards in the town I live in, essentially. So it was just a live set I did that because I wanted to just sing some of my songs, basically. Laugh and the World Laughs With You, though, of course, name taken from the famous phrase, of course. This song originates way back, though, like before These Mortal Hands and stuff. It results, I think it's around sort of 2016 to 2017, which at the time, it's still a very bad time for mental health and stuff, but it was also as I described on the Bandcamp, a real creative bounty for my songwriting as Low Resident. I don't know why, but I was churning out song after song after song of just examining this existential relationship with myself and the world and music, essentially. And for me, Laugh and the World Laughs With You is like, it's a simple song, essentially. Like, there's three chords throughout the entire thing, but lyrically I'm really pleased with how it examines in my head my understanding of myself, if that makes sense, or where I was at the time. And very dark as well, very dark and foreboding in this weird way, but that same kind of examination of who are you, why are you feeling this, what is it to feel this, and everything like that, and what is identity, essentially. So yeah, it's to be fair, out of the two recordings, I think this is perhaps one of the muddier ones. Both of the recordings are very lo-fi, very demo-y and stuff, which is fine. It's just a simple little release, but yeah, it's a bit of an odd one. Like, this one, I kind of really went a bit full ham, where it was this looped guitar pattern, kind of a bunch of overdubs of guitars, but also towards the end there's a bit of harmonica that I tried to play, and I can't play that harmonica, as you can probably tell if you listen to this song, but it kind of added a bit more gravitas to the recording, if that makes sense. It still sounds very lo-fi and muddy, but it's kind of what I wanted for the end. To try discuss this release, though, why release this now? Why talk about it on the channel? Why discuss this and stuff and yada yada? Why present music like this, essentially? It was around last year that I was trying to sort of finalize a bunch of recordings. There's been so many recordings under the Low Resident moniker that just haven't been released yet. It's fine, it is what it is. But These Mortal Hands and Laugh and the World Laughs With You, two songs recorded at very different times in my life, and yet, weirdly enough, through sheerly coincidental means, really tied into each other in very odd little ways. One of the things that really surprises me about this particular release and these two particular songs is a coincidence I never noticed until I designed the very, the whole design for this essentially. When I was writing in the lyrics for the inside cover, where essentially both of the songs end on the same sort of notion of on these mortal hands, it ends on the line of "Why did I do this?" and then "Laugh and the world laughs with you," written way before "Why did I do this again? I'm in hysterics." And that it really fascinated me how coincidentally I tied these two songs together without even realizing it essentially, and it's a weird thing to try explain. But yet, why release it then? Why come back to it? Why would you release music that puts you back into such a dark, foreboding place? Well, like I said, it's the main thing for trying to release something like this is, I kind of wanted to do something for the 2-year anniversary, but also it's important for me to try recognize, what low resonance journey is, if that makes sense, which is basically my journey in music. And these two songs really culminate a lot of what I feel the aesthetic of low resonant is and stuff, especially these mortal hands, especially Laugh and the World Laughs with You. By releasing this on a physical release for everyone, it feels like I'm finally able to move on, close that chapter on my life, and just move on to everything else that is going on in life, if that makes sense. It's difficult to really explain in a way that makes any tangible sense, but it is what it is, of course. But it's been nearly 5 years essentially, which is actually crazy to think about. I actually haven't considered the fact that it's been 5 years since then. But time does heal these things eventually. Not for everyone, of course, not for the people I have hurt, I guess, but for myself, it is time for me to close that chapter, accept things, and move on. And I feel by releasing this, it's a way of me being able to do that, if that makes sense. I can finally just close that off, look towards the future, and see what else is to come, if that makes sense. So, yeah, it's very odd, essentially. This video, I'm pretty sure this video makes no sense actually in terms of weird music structure and concept and everything like that, essentially. But it is what it is, of course, isn't it? I think it's probably best though to sort of talk about this physical release. So before we close off, this physical cassette is going to be available now if people want to buy this. If you want to, you don't have to, you can if you want. Designed the whole thing myself. It was really nicely just created by this wonderful company that basically handled all of the design, the construction elements of it. I chose an artwork by Francisco de Goya here as the artwork, basically a man with fleas, which I thought kind of captured that existentialism of just your own skin crawling, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's an odd little release, but it's available for people if you'd like it. I think it might be worth also just going through my Bandcamp explanation here, sort of as a way to finalize this really bizarre, nonsensical video. Where to begin? I find my own music very difficult to approach in a sort of objective sense. As mentioned in the release for Ado Edith, my music explores my relationship with existentialism, of understanding one's place in the world, and what it means to exist with a mind that works the way it does. These days, I've been writing more and more about other people's music in the Weird Music series on YouTube. It is a joy and something that has kept my creative endeavours going since medication essentially dried the well of musical works. Now, having to turn the eye upon myself and my own work, very peculiar, and something that is genuinely a struggle. These songs were written back in the years of 2018 and 2019. The latter was perhaps one of the most turbulent and chaotic years of my life, marred by some very caustic life events that culminated in the writing and recording of These Mortal Hands. It is a song I cannot even remember how to play these days. All of its various elements, from its repeated guitar line, moody bass and chaotic emo towards the end were all born from the moment of trying desperately to understand and comprehend a mind that was incomprehensible and self-destructive. I find it a little scary to listen to these days, as it places me right back in those times. But this recording remains my only memory of this song, the only thing left that exists of it. Laugh and the World Laughs With You was written back in 2018, during an incredible creative bounty for songwriting under the Low Resident moniker. At its core, it is a simple song that apparently just bounces around to the chords of G minor, A sharp and D sharp, played on a guitar tuned a step lower. It's perhaps one of my favourite songs lyrically, as I felt I was able to express both literally and figuratively my fascination with existentialism and at the time my burgeoning mental health. The recording is so incredibly old and muddy in places, but like the scratches and faders to old photographs, it is perhaps some of the charm that makes sense. What I always liked about this original recording was the excessive use of emos towards the end, which then became backed up by an incredibly shaky harmonica performance with added reverb effects. Although written at different times, I always felt these two songs fit oddly well together in a narrative sense, one attempting to understand my mental health, myself, my existentialism, and another a culmination of years and years of turmoil, all building up to a terrible boiling point. Weirdly enough, without ever noticing, these two songs even became linked lyrically with the repeated phrase of "why did I do this?", a paean to understanding one's own actions, even those that were damaging and self-destructive. It feels like now, after so many years, I can maybe put this past to rest in the form of this cassette release. This is a limited run purely for those who wish to own a copy of my odd ramblings in the form of lo-fi home recordings. Once they're gone, they're gone. Look after yourselves and take care. Guitar, pedals, ebo and harmonica by Gareth Watkin. Words by Gareth Watkin, recorded 2018 to 19. Mixing and mastering by Nightfall 2023. Artwork by Francisco Goya, released 2024. So, probably should have started there, to be fair. A much better way of explaining this of music. But if you made it this far, then fair play. Like this is a really weird episode in the Weird Music canon, which is probably why I'm not releasing it as part of official Weird Music canon, if that makes sense. But this is, my own music, my own release, and I thought it'd be interesting to try examine it, through the eye of Glumberger, if that makes sense. It's all very weird and existential, but I just thought it'd be kind of interesting. But yeah, I honestly don't know what more to actually say about this, so I think with that, we're going to come to the end of our episode of Weird Music. I really appreciate anyone who's taken the time to watch through this episode. A lot of the things I try to do with the Weird Music series is kind of just present things that people haven't heard of a lot of the time. Stuff that people have heard of, but a lot of the time things people haven't heard of, and of course nobody's going to heard of my music. Why would they, of course? But the idea is that it might connect to some of you out there based on why you've come to this channel before as well, and it is genuinely an honor if you decided to listen through this entire episode, basically, for whatever reason. So yeah, as mentioned, These Mortal Hands, Laugh and the World Laughs With You will be available on Bandcamp for streaming if you'd like to. You can purchase it digitally. You can purchase the cassette. As mentioned, once they're gone, they're gone. I don't really know how many there is, actually, to be fair. A bunch of friends once, but we'll see how we get on. But yeah, if you'd like it, just let me know. So with that, I would like to thank you for watching today's episode of Weird Music. I wish you all the best. Take care. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.